Good morning. So we would be covering 2012 paper 2. Now in this lecture we would cover both section A and B in a single session. Now the first question under paper 2 deals with map location. We have covered all the map locations for all the past papers starting 1999 at Doorstep Tutor. So you can just log on there and you can visit all the map locations that were asked. All the contemporary map locations we are covering in a separate lectures. So the next question we would be focusing here. Explain the structural characteristics of Deccan Plateau. Now for this questions like this, what you have to do is you must demarcate your answers under the origin of the plateau, the locations and the subdivisions, and finally the composition. So under origin you can say it's made up of a hard crystalline rock. It is volcanic in origin. Then you can explain the location and the subdivisions, where you can explain the region of Deccan Plateau. Then you have to explain the composition. So this is made up of crystalline rocks. It touches the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Eastern Ghats are Malayadiri on the other side, and you have the Western Ghats on the other side. So you have this region which is enclosed between this, and the tip of this region goes up to Cape Comorin. So these are some of the basic concepts that you can explain under the structural characteristics. The next question is discuss the role of spatial pattern of rainfall and temperature, delimiting the classification given by Stamp. So what you have to explain here first of all is the way under which climatic classification can go off. So you can explain, you have different types of classification like Köppen, Trivartha, Thornwitt, and then Stamp. So all these scholars try to classify climate of the region based on certain characteristics. Stamp was one of those who tried to explain the classification by giving an 18-degree isotherm, and this 18-degree isotherm explained two different areas. So you have the 18-degree isotherm that runs more or less parallel to Tropic of Cancer, separating the two sections across the country. So you have the Himalayan region towards the north, then you have the northwestern region, you have the arid areas, the region of moderate rainfall, you have the region of transition, and finally the zone below the 18-degree isotherm, you have the region of very heavy rainfall, moderate rainfall, and then you have the Konkan coast, Malabar coast, and the Tamil Nadu region. So that was the classification propounded by Stamp. So you have to demarcate above 18-degree isotherms and below 18-degree isotherms and the regions in the corresponding zones. The next question is delineate the mineral belts of India and mention their distinctive features. So what you have to do is on a map of India, draw out the major regions or mark out the major regions where you can say this is the northeastern region, this is the northwestern region, then you have the southwestern region. So what you have to mark is on the map the region. So northeastern region you would have the oil fields, the Assam oil fields. Under the southwestern region you would have the region which is the Karnataka and Goa region. Northwestern region would be the region mainly in and around Aravali's, where you will have mainly copper, zinc, beryllium mining. Then you would have the central belt which would have the mica, coal, lignite, and iron, steel. Then you would have the southern belt that would be seen here. So these would be the main regions that you have to explain and the distinctive features. What unique is found in different regions. So you would have to explain those in brief. The next is divide India into agricultural regions and examine the impact. So what you have done here is, what we can do here is you can explain the various regions. So what you have done is demarcated the rice, jute and tea region. So this is the rice, jute, tea region of India. Then you have the wheat region that you have demarcated. So you have the wheat region. You have the region of millets and oil seeds. Then you have the region of fruits, that's towards the northern hills. The hilly region, you have mainly the region of cotton production in the region of black soil in the Deccan, and finally you have the region of millets which is seen here. So these are the major regions which you have demarcated, and based on this you can explain the regional variations and the role of ecological and human factors. So you can say the rainfall conditions, the climatic conditions of each of the section is different. As a result, you have different crops that are grown into the different sections or the different regions of India. So that's a kind of model which works around the regionalization. So you can include the concepts from regional geography, which shows the regional delineation of a region, how the regional delineation has been taking place. You can consider the facts related to temperature, pressure and precipitation here. Based on that, you can delineate the regions, and then you can mention the specific factors which are involved in those. The next is describe the development of textile industries in India. Now here, first of all, you must start your answer with India versus the globe. So you can say India versus the world. You can say India is the third largest manufacturer of cotton production. Then you have India is the second largest manufacturer of textile production after China. So mention the patterns of growth that are happening in India, the drawbacks and the improvements required. So you can say the technology is getting obsolete. So you need to work around more on technological upgradation. You must have textile upgradation programs that must work around for the funds that should be moved in. Now the growth pattern in the textile industry, you must focus on that 30% of the exports that are taking place from India are mainly from the textile sector, and beyond that you have more than 15 million people who are directly or indirectly associated with employment related to textile industry. So textile development or textile industry in India is a major part. The next is role of road transportation. Now when we talk about role of road transportation, you must start your answer with the importance of road transportation. It is a means of cheaper transportation. It provides connection to the feeder ways. It also connects the railway lines and the industrial hubs. The growth and development prospects for road, so you can focus those on national level, state level and district level. Under the national level, you can work around the golden quadrilateral, the north-south corridor and the east-west corridor. Then you can explain the classification of roads as I did. Under this, you can also explain the various projects that are going on. That's, for example, BOT, built, operate and transport, where you have a privately owned sector that has been provided the responsibility of building, operating and then transferring it to the center. Then you can jot down examples. Examples could come out from the various government projects that are being released. For example, Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, where you have the idea of connecting the rural villages with a population of 1500 or more with a good road network. So connecting villages across India. You can take case studies from either an area where you live in, or you can cite one or two major case studies, for example the golden quadrilateral or the east-west and the north-south corridor. So these could be some of the examples that you can explain in. The next is identify the spatial pattern of agro-industrial regions in India. Now when we say agro-industrial regions, you can definitely classify the regions under different heads. So you can say the regions which deal with cotton, jute industry, sugar industry, then you have tea industry, cotton industry. So all those would be agro-industrial regions. Now if I want to classify the regions in India, I can say some of the major regions would be the Hooghly region in West Bengal, you have the Ahmedabad-Baroda region, then you have the Pune-Nasik region, and then you have the Malwa region. So these are some of the regions. Now when we, this question specifically focuses on Malwa. So Malwa is an extension of the Deccan plateau. The major region that it covers is the Devas, Jhabua, Ratlam, Indore, Ujjain, Jhalawad region from Rajasthan. All this region, you have various kind of industries that you can see here. So you have leather industry in Devas, you have stainless steel in Sagar, you have cotton and woolen industries in Indore, you have synthetic fiber industry in Nagda close to Ujjain. So you have industries which are mainly agro based, which are located in the Malwa region. So you must mention those. Also you should mention the major agro industrial regions of India. The next question is the factors affecting innovation diffusion. So first explain what is diffusion of innovation. So you have 22.5% as innovators, then you have the early adopters and the laggards who lately adopt the technology. So you have to explain how you have the diffusion of innovation that is taking place. Now this diffusion of innovation includes 4 basic parameters, that is innovation, the communication channel, the time that is being used and the social system. Based on these 4 parameters you have the element of diffusion of the innovated idea that takes place. Now the specific factors that would affect innovation diffusion would be the relative advantage of working around that concept, then the complexity of that concept that you are working around, the viability and the feasibility of its spread. So these are some of the major factors that affect the distribution and innovation. The next is linguistic diversity in northeastern states. Now when you start with this question, you must start with the language regions of India. So you could say you have either the Indo-Aryan region, you have the region of Dravidian, Austric and Sino-Tibetan region. Now out of this you have the northeastern region where you have predominantly Manipuri, Assamese, and part of it you have the languages from Naga family and part of it which is Bengali. Now you have the list of languages which are part of the Naga group of languages in most of the states of northeast. So you have to explain here how you have the linguistic diversity that takes place, and the presence of nearly 29 tribes in the northeastern region also increases the complexity and the diversity of language, which creates a unique kind of region for the northeast, which is also known as a paradise unexplored. The next question, you have the geographical regions for variation of literacy from state to state. Now here you have to explain why certain regions have very high rate of literacy as compared to other regions. So that why should be explained, and that is the must. So you can refer our postal course where we have the details on those. So now to explain briefly, if you try to understand the region where you had kind of start for the colonial expansion, that region you have good literacy rates. Then you have the coastal regions which had more impact of the traders and the sailors that were coming in from other countries, had a good start for language development and a higher literacy rate. The regions where you have higher per capita income, for example regions of West Bengal, Gujarat, have higher literacy rate. So what you have to do here is you must explain the census 2011 variations. Then you must have a map with regional variations stating that these are the regions of higher literacy, and then you have certain regions which have low literacy, which is Punjab, UP and Rajasthan here, Jharkhand. So you must be able to explain why certain regions have higher literacy rate as compared to other regions which have lower literacy rate. The next is identify tsunami affected regions and give their management problems in India. Now again in this you must explain this by means of map. The most common region where you have the tsunami impact is the region of Andamans and the Kutch coast of Gujarat. The Car Nicobar tsunami, the Andaman tsunami, the Karachi tsunami that affected parts of Kutch are some of the major tsunamis that impacted the region. Then you must mention the management and the issues. So there should be proper technological upgradation that should be done to detect early warning. So you must have techniques which could detect the early impact of tsunami on the region, the predictive devices which could tell you in advance so that people can relocate to the heart of the city from the coastal areas. So we have covered these management issues under the class on tsunamis, so you can refer the class on tsunamis for this. The next is the morphological characteristics of village situated in a hilly region. Now what were the benefits of situating a village onto a hill? Previously the villages were situated on a hilly area because of few of the important factors, first of which was defense. This is a good example for the city of Rome. So what was there was the city was established on a height so that it could defend itself nicely from the periphery. So defense was one of the main reasons why villages preferred to establish on a hilly region. The next was for the coastal areas, the main reason was to keep away from the problems associated with floods. Then you had certain regions which were fertile based on volcanic origin soil or soil which was previously under impact of a natural calamity. So you have regions have established on the top of a hill. So this depends on three different basic factors. The first is the pattern. So usually the village on the hills would either be linear or semicircular in nature. Then slope is a major factor that governs the establishment of the village on the hill, and finally is the interflow. So interflow should be narrow and elongated in case of villages if they are established on the hills. So these are the three major things that you must cover while explaining the morphological characters of village on a hill. The next is evaluate the population policy of India. So here what you have to start with is the pre-independence policy, the post-independence policy. Then you have to explain the 1976 population policy, which focused mainly on family planning, female education and the rise of the marriage age. Then you had the policy that started in 2000, which mainly focused on the immediate, medium and the long run goals. So you had decrease in the IMR, control on the total fertility rate and so on. Finally, you must include the national socio-demographic goals for 2010. So these goals were set to help control the national population or the growth in the population. So these are some of the basic parameters that you must cover under this class in this question. The next is give an account of the geographical conditions responsible for development of different types of rural settlements in India. Now here first you have to explain the patterns of rural settlements. So you have to explain there were certain settlements which were rectangular, circular, linear, and why so. So for each of these you have to explain why. So you must explain if it was linear, it was along a transportation route. It was circular, it was around tube well or village well. If it was rectangular, there was a kind of proper settlement that was seen there. So what you have to explain basically here is, if it was Y-shape, you had the two rivers, the two streams merging into a single stream, or the Doab region, where you had a village that was established. So what you have to explain, this question basically asks is explaining the patterns of rural settlement with citing certain examples from each case. Again here you can explain the Chamberlain's stages, where you can explain how the evolution of settlement started. It started with rural-urban linkages, then there was occupational transformation that started from agricultural to mining and industrial, and then you had increased implication of urban land use that could be seen. The next is examine origin, dimensions and implications of Sino-Indian border dispute. Now this has been explained in detail in the postal course again. So what you need to explain here is start with the history, explaining why there was the region. You have the region of Jammu Kashmir, so you have to explain the region of Aksai Chin, which is beyond the line of control. So you have the China administered and the Pak administered region. So you have to start with the history, why there was a dispute, what are the major dimensions. Then you have to focus on how you can work around, what benefits does China have. So China mainly practices art of guerrilla warfare. So India has to be aware the aggressive nature and the kind of economic progress are some of the major confrontations which work around. So you have to explain all these in detail. The next is impact causes of flood hazards in middle Ganga region. Now start with what are the causes of floods. So when I explain the causes of flood, you can include the meteorological causes, you can say the geomorphological causes or anthropogenic causes. So you can explain the causes under three head, and then you can explain the reasons for each. For meteorological, you can say rainfall or clouds. Then you have to explain the flood prone regions of India, mainly the Ganga region and the Brahmaputra Delta region. Then you have to explain the flood control and management techniques. So under the flood control and management, you have to explain the forecasting, the decrease in the runoff, the channel creation and diversion of waters from the regions which are highly drained to the seasonal river regions. So these are some of the areas you have to focus on, and then you have to explain with a special case study of mid-Ganga plains. The next question is relevance of linkages of river. Now this question talks about interlinking of rivers, the benefits and the disadvantages. This is again important for this year because you had Ken Betwa, which was in news recently. So this talks about specifically about Ganga-Cauveri. So what you have to explain is how the rivers which are perennial in water and where you have the problems of flood should be avoided, and that water should be diverted to the region where you do not have sufficient water, or where there is lack of or I could say water scarcity in simple terms. So what this concept basically tries to do is it tries to remove out regional disparities. It tries to create a uniform supply of water across the nation, uniform and a kind of perennial or a supply of water that is available throughout the year. Then the main focus here is economic growth and prosperity of the region. However, interlinking does have some negative aspects. The main negative aspect that is being worked around is the seismic hazard. Because of the establishment of or connecting of the rivers, it would lead to the imbalance of the existing system that could be harmful in certain ways. So you have to explain the disadvantages as well as the advantages, and then you have to specifically work around the Ganga-Cauveri linkage canal, where you have to provide some statistics and give the general details. The next question is how age structure affects dependency ratio, explain with suitable example. Now this question asks about three things. So you have to start with explaining the population pyramids, compare the data from 1991 to 2011, and then explain the dependency ratio, that how you have the young and the old population that are dependent on the working population. So you have to explain the dependency ratio and the population pyramids to work around this question. The next question is elucidate the role of tribal development blocks in development of tribal regions. Now article 164 talks about the establishment of Ministry of Tribal Welfare. Then article 244 talks about the scheduled area and scheduled tribes. Under the third plan, the third 5-year plan, you had tribal development blocks that were established or worked around, and under the fifth 5-year plan you had focus on tribal sub-plans, which were mainly meant for the development and the benefit of the tribal regions. So you have to explain those, you have to show the progress, and you have to give the statistics for the same. So that all is again included in our material, so you can refer those. In the next classes we would be covering the remaining papers till 2015. We would be also covering some more contemporary topics which are important for this year's mains examination. You can subscribe to our channel for further updates. Have a good day ahead.